Alright, so in this video tutorial, I just want to kind of cover how to draw based on shapes, because this is one of those things that might be a little bit helpful. If you don't have a pen or something like that, then some of these tools here won't be as useful for you, but what might be a little bit more useful is using shapes instead. Okay, so normally Adobe Animate is a vector-based program. So what that means is that when you draw your pictures, right, when you draw shapes and such, what you're going to notice is that it is made of vectors. So I can grab these points, right, this point in space, and it's the lines connected, and then there's a stroke drawn to each one, and then the area is filled in with a fill, okay, which is fine, and that's great. But normally in most programs, when you draw shapes and such, they actually get treated a little bit differently. They'll actually be treated a little bit more like this. I'm going to do with this turned on. So let's say I draw this object, and let's say I draw another object. Okay. All right. Actually, let me draw an oval. Okay. So I draw this and I draw this. Now, if I take this object and I lay over top and then I unclick, I can still grab this and pull it away. They're separate. You know what I mean? One is on top of the other, right? Because no matter where I put this one, it's in front of it, right? So, and we can adjust that. So I could do arrange and bring to front, and now this guy's on top of him, okay? Or I can grab that one and modify arrange, bring to front, okay? And now he's on top, right? So, but that's normally probably how you're used to things working. Inside of Animate, it's a little bit different. So you can work that way, although you lose a little bit of control by this drawing mode. Although it is handy because if you're trying to draw stuff and you don't want them to get weird, you can fix them this way. You can also still adjust them. I forgot to mention in the other video. If I double click on it, I then do have all of the controls that I usually would. It's just that they're not really symbols because they don't show up in the library, but I can back up and it's still there. So but it draws them as like, it's almost like they're just a little group that is nested inside like this other group. Okay, so that's basically the idea of it. So there's a nicety in it because that way you don't have to worry about things like if I was trying to make like a car, right? I could like make a wheel and then I'm just going to control D to make another wheel, and then I could draw like this box, right? And I don't have to worry about, like, if I want to take this wheel and move it, I don't have to worry about this, doing whatever. But there's strength in the fact that basically if you don't have object mode turned on, it's actually going to have some neat effects, okay? You can do basically like kind of real-time Booleans. So let's do the same example, but I'm going to turn off this object drawing mode, okay? It's on down here too. So just make sure that's not on. Is it on or not on? I can't tell. I want you off. Okay, I think it's off. All right. So I'm going to draw the square like I did before. And let's, just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to take my stroke and I'm just going to give it nothing so that way it's not as confusing. So I'm going to draw this shape, then I'm going to take my circle and we'll just do another color. And I'm going to let me draw it over here like this. Okay. Now watch what happens. If I'm not in drawing mode, sorry, hang on a second. If I put this over top of this, if I pull it back, it's still there. But if I unclick and then click and drag it off, it took its shape out of it. So instead of like these things being separate pieces that you can stack on top of each other, they exist in the same plane. So if they go over top of each other, in order for the one to exist, it has to take away from the other one. You see what I'm saying? So it will actually cut out of it. And it goes both ways. I can take this guy, go like this, right? And then pull either one off. And then look. So what's neat is you can actually make kind of interesting and cool shapes that way. And then afterwards you can still manipulate them like you normally would, right? So like basically what it's doing is if I hit A, it's just drawing. I thought I hit A. Did I not? Okay. It's just drawing those points in there. So you can see this has those points, but it just cut those points into the other. So it allows for like this weird kind of flexibility, and you can do some really interesting, things that way by just combining cutting shapes out. Now, if I were to draw, let's say, another circle, I'm going to hit I to sample this first, And then let's just draw my circle as this. If I go over here, if I click off, if I try to click on, they are now one unit. And again, I have all the flexibility, of that shape still, like we normally would. So you can create some really interesting shapes. Like you can do simple things like this. Like let's say I want to make clouds, right? I'm just gonna make them like this gray so you can see it. I could kind of just go like this, and then draw another one, and another one, and like another one. And maybe just draw like a real kind of straight one, and boom, I made a cloud. And what's neat is they're all one piece. Pretty easy. Now, let's say I wanted, to add like more variation in this. This is where it gets even more neat. I can actually take, let's say, the line tool. If I draw some lines in here, let's say there, there, there. I'm just gonna put a couple of these in here, right? Because without these, let me just show you real quick. If I try to grab this, you're gonna see it does a lot. But let's say I want to break it up in some way. If I take the line tool instead, and we just cut these up, come on. I now can go ahead and basically pull these, and you can see it's going to create it creates points where basically wherever those are. This looks terrible, but you get the idea. Go inwards, I don't know. Right? Undo that move. And then I can just, let me see, what would be the best way to do this? Grab this whole thing, and then per stroke, turn it off. Would that work? There we go. I don't know if those strokes still there. No, they're not. Okay. So I could add variation that way. So because they all exist in the same plane, it's very easy to make a drawing. So later on, we're going to make my cone guy. I'm just going to do it real quick right now, just so you can see it. You can partake in it if you want. It doesn't matter what let's go ahead and just do black. Okay. So let's say I just want to make my cone dude. All I got to do is make this smaller. Let's say 3. Draw a line across. Draw down. Draw down. Draw across. Right. And then I can just use my select tool, and I'm just going to kind of pull this point. I'm going to do this real quick too, because I don't know, no matter how many times I turn this off, it's always there. So turn all this snapping off. Okay. I can kind of pull this up, and I can kind of pull that, go like this, and then I can just click all these little nublets off. Just click and delete, just make sure you don't double click. The double click will grab it all. Click and delete, and then it's supposed to be curved this way. So all I got to do is I'm going to hit N for the line tool, cut across, and then hit V for the select tool again, this guy, and pull this one out, like so, and then I can just get rid of this. You can see you can just grab and pull and get the shape that you want pretty easily. Now, let's say I'm trying to do that little square part that's on its bottom. I can do that pretty easy too. So let's say I take this, I'm going to do no fill. I'm just going to draw like this, okay? Then what I'm going to do is do this. I need to curve the outside. So what I'm going to do instead is cut this across like this, okay? And I'm going to Control plus, because it's supposed to be curved right here, right? So now I'm going to do, because that automatically cuts in those spots, come on. And then I can just pull each one of these corners, and I've made myself a rounded, obviously I would have done a cleaner and better job, a rounded rectangle. Then what I can do is grab this whole thing, hit Q, or click on this here, just shear it, maybe scale it a little bit. If I hold Control, I can further kind of tweak it. If I hold Control, I grab these handles, Control minus, take that, grab that, just grab V, and just move this guy down here, right, like Q, because that's a little bit too big, and squish it a little bit. Boom, right? And then to get rid of the line, I just got to literally, let me do it with V, it's easier with V. Grab that, delete, and you can see, boom. It's pretty easy. So what you can do is you can actually just use the stuff and intersect them however you want, and then just through overlap. and it just automatically, it's called a Boolean when you take something and you either combine or remove it from something else. I know some things call it different things, but that's kind of the standard. I don't know what they call it in here, but that's what you normally call it. But by doing that, I can do all sorts of interesting shape drawing. So it's something that you might want to think about doing when you're doing your drawings and stuff in the future, is maybe do it this way. Or you can try to freehand it. Like I said, if you've got like a Wacom tablet with a pen, you can kind of control the look a little bit better. This is good for more like shape-based stuff. But yeah, so you can totally give that a try. All right, so that's it.